cobble races, the cobble classics, they're real special because the danger. And if you take a Tour of Flanders, you go to a Paris-Roubaix, there's many crashes, so it's a big spectacle. And that's what spectators like. They go to all the difficult sections, the sections where there's going to be drama. That's what makes the classic such an important event at the beginning of season, and especially the cobble classics. I think if you're a rider who can ride the cobbles well and you're one of the best, well then you enjoy it because you know you're up there in the action, you're up there with the top guys. There's that adrenaline flow. You know you have the advantage over a lot of other riders because the cobble classic riders, there's only 10 maximum, maybe 15 you can say, well that's going to be one of the winners today. Where in another race, there's a lot more riders who are candidates to win. Sometimes it's the real strong riders like the big time trials, they can do really well. So it's all about, yes, big power output, being heavy as well, because that helps a lot on the cobblestones. If you're a lightweight, you get throwing around a lot on the cobbles, and you have to be a bit of a kamikaze rider as well. And that's why we see a lot of the guys who win these races, like Roubaix, like Flanders, they're a bit crazy on their bike, and of course sprinters, they all are crazy. The real specialists, they can ride so comfortably looking, and they can ride so smoothly on the cobblestones. That's the thing I remarked, and De Vlaeminck was one. When you race with him, when you ride over the cobblestones, it was amazing. That guy, he was like he was floating over the top of them. To ride a bike over the cobbles in Roubaix, the cobbles are unbelievable. They're in such a bad state because they're not the roads that the normal people, the normal traffic, the normal car drivers use. They're only for the farmers with their tractors, going to the fields to do agricultural work. So the cobble sections, they're really big cobbles. There's a lot of gaps and holes between, so they're in a very bad state. It's not a nice race to ride, but it's a great race to win, I suppose. The way to explain it is, Paris-Roubaix is the best race to win, but it's probably the most horrible ones to ride. When you're riding the cobbles, there's always a big risk of crashes. Unless you're really in the front, and that you can't do in a Tour of Flanders or Paris-Roubaix. You can't be in the front all the time because you burn so much energy, so you have to follow in the slipstream, in the drafting of other riders. And when you're in that position, you're always in the danger zone, because when guys crash in front of you, when you have to make a sudden correction of your line, you can fall so easy on the cobbles. So riding the cobbles, best place is in the middle. That's the most safest place, because normally it's pretty clean because it's risen in the middle, but it's also the most difficult place because it's harder riding there. On the side, when you can ride off the cobbles, it's 5% easier, but there in the race you have the danger of the spectators, and we've seen many times where riders are touched by the spectators and they get knocked off, and also the risk of puncturing because you have a lot of grit, you have a lot of little stones on the side. You have to be able to roll a big gear. You can't ride a small gear and a very high cadence because it doesn't work on the cobbles. Sitting in the saddle, of course, is the best way, because when you get out of the saddle, the bike starts to move. The rear end of the bike, it starts to float around a lot. There's a lot of riders who can ride on the dry cobbles. They can be, they can ride good, but when it comes wet, well then again it reduces the number of guys who can ride really well on the cobbles because it's so dangerous. It's so slippery. You have to be fearless. I think that is the word. If you're fearless, well then you can do well on the cobbles. Well, on the cobbles, you have to concentrate all the time. If you compare cobble section and a normal road, it's day and night. If a rider gets into problems and he starts to slide out, to correct it on the cobbles is much more difficult than on the road. So for that reason, you have to concentrate 100% all the time, and that's why it's so demanding, because you burn so much nervous energy doing that. Guys that do ride well in Tour of Flanders, there's no guarantee that that they're going to be up there in the same position as competitive in a Paris-Roubaix, because the cobbles are much more demanding. Now I think the bike frames, they build these special frames, and they have also much bigger tyres now, but in general, nothing has changed a big amount from 25-30 years ago. And if you suffer, in the earlier part of the race, you're not on a good day, then it hurts a lot, and it hurts for many days afterwards. You have sore in your arms, your wrists. You have muscle soreness for a number of days. But when you're really good and you're in top shape and you're winning, the next day, you feel you've pretty much recovered almost 100%. But when you get a bad day on the cobble races, well then you're sore for many days.